Let me tell you a story about something you probably missed. You know that feeling when you're deep in the charts, watching the numbers flicker, convinced you have a handle on what's real. You see silver sitting there, around $90 an ounce. Maybe you're planning an entry. Maybe you're waiting for a pullback. It feels like just another day in the markets. But what if I told you that while you were focused on that screen, a seismic shift just occurred, one that quietly rewrote the rules of the entire game? This isn't about scare tactics. This is about connecting dots that are hiding in plain sight, from official sources that paint a picture so urgent it demands your full attention. Consider this. The very institution responsible for producing the nation's coinage, the United States Mint, just updated its public pricing. The spot price on your screen says $90, but as of this morning, the Mint priced its proof, American Silver Eagle, at $173. The uncirculated version is listed at $169. Let that settle in. The entity that stamps the metal has effectively declared its value to be nearly double what the futures market claims. This isn't a dealer markup or a temporary shortage. This is a sovereign entity, the government's own mint, publishing a price that screams one clear, undeniable fact. The $90 paper price is a fantasy. It's a confession buried in a simple website update that the physical reality of what something costs and the paper promise of what it's worth have violently divorced. Now, I can already sense the skepticism. The mint sales are suspended. It's just a placeholder price. It doesn't count. But that line of thinking, in my view, misses the forest for a single tree. Ask yourself, why would a closed institution bother to recalibrate its entire pricing structure to such a radical level? It's a signal, a glaring red flare shot into the sky. They are telling us in advance that when their doors reopen, they cannot and will not sell a strategic, tangible asset for a price they know is a cruel joke. They are front-running the inevitable. They've looked at their own costs, at the true scarcity in the physical supply chain, and have been forced to admit the truth their colleagues in finance are still trying to suppress. This creates a two-tiered world. In one, traders swap digital derivatives, drawing lines on charts, living in a simulation where silver is $90. In the other, the actual metal moves at a completely different valuation, a reality where if you want to hold it, you must pay a price that acknowledges a broken currency. This leads me to share my speculation on the psychology here, a thought I believe is critical. If you are an individual holding physical silver and you see your government posting a $173 price tag on it, what does that do to your willingness to sell for $90? It evaporates. This single administrative act has psychologically fortified every holder of real metal. It has, perhaps inadvertently, created a collective diamond hand mentality, starving the system of the liquidity and panic selling the paper market desperately needs to survive. The mint hasn't just changed a number, they've potentially broken the sell button for the entire physical crowd. And this revelation didn't happen in a vacuum. It occurred against the backdrop of what can only be described as a heist. On the very same day this pricing update appeared, the reported vaults at the commodity exchange saw over 4 million ounces of silver physically withdrawn. This wasn't a trickle, it was a flood. A coordinated removal of metal from every major depository, from Asahi to CNT to JP Morgan's own vault. The scale is staggering. Think in terms of armored convoys and cargo planes, not simple inventory management. What's more, this mass exodus happened concurrently with a sharp engineered drop in the paper price. The math is cynical and brilliant. Crash the paper price to trigger panic selling and stop losses. Then use the artificially created downdraft to physically claim metal at a massive discount. They loot the vault using the retail trader's own fear as the smokescreen. The most alarming detail in this vault data, to my mind, is the brutal drawdown in the registered category, the metal actually available to deliver against contracts. It plummeted. This is the buffer, the liquidity pool for the entire paper edifice, and it's being systematically dismantled. When entities pull metal from the for sale column and move it into private, opaque storage, they are not preparing for business as usual. They are preparing for scarcity. They are preparing for a moment when the paper claims cannot be met with physical metal. Given the current bleed rate, we are looking at a timeline that points toward a major delivery month like March and whispers a terrifying question. What happens when demand for delivery arrives and the vaults have already been stripped bare? Now, amidst this institutional maneuvering, a parallel historic event is unfolding: the quiet, relentless accumulation by the everyday person. Data shows that retail investors have been net buyers of the largest silver ETF for 169 consecutive days. That's nearly 6 months of non-stop buying, a streak that dwarfs even the famous 2021 rally. Billions of dollars are flowing in, a clear signal that the public is awakening to inflation and seeking hard asset protection. This is the unstoppable force. But here is where my thoughts turn grim, and where I need you to pay very close attention. This monumental wave of capital is largely pouring into paper proxies like ETFs. And the custodian for the biggest such fund is none other than a bank deeply implicated in the vault drainage, and historically, a massive short seller. This is the ultimate trap. The public is buying what they believe is silver, but they hold a paper claim in a system where the physical metal is being stealthily moved out the back door. When a crisis of delivery hits, the paper ETF holder will likely be left with a cash settlement in a currency that's rapidly losing value, while the actual metal belongs to someone else. This brings us to the villains in this drama, who are also its most vulnerable players. Major banks are reported to be sitting on a derivatives short position so colossal it defies belief. Estimates suggest a collective short equivalent to over 5 years of global mine production. They have sold promises for silver that can never exist in the physical realm. They are now caught in a vice. On one side, a public buying relentlessly for 169 days and counting. On the other, their own allies physically draining the vaults that provide the illusion of collateral. Every price smash they engineer to scare the public only invites more determined accumulation. They are fighting for their survival, and their actions are becoming increasingly desperate and transparent. This is where I'd like to pause and ask you to consider subscribing if this deep dive is making sense to you. Staying informed as the situation unfolds is not just about profit, it's about protecting your purchasing power in a system that is showing profound signs of strain. Your attention and awareness are your first lines of defense. So, where does all this leave us as we stare at the Monday opening bell? We have a sovereign mint price of $173. We have a paper exchange price of $90. We have vaults hemorrhaging inventory and a retail army buying paper claims to metal that is disappearing. The gap between these realities is not a premium, it is a chasm, a symptom of a terminal breakdown. Markets ultimately reconcile such disparities, and physics tells us the path of least resistance is not for physical reality to collapse toward a paper illusion, but for the paper price to erupt toward physical truth. My final speculation, the thought I will leave you with as we close, is this. The great repricing is no longer a future event. It is already here, just not evenly distributed. The United States Mint has confessed the true cost. The vault data shows the inventory is fleeing. The only thing left to reprice is the paper screen, and that recalibration will be sudden, violent, and absolute. The strategy from here is simple, yet requires immense fortitude. Do not sell your physical metal into a fake paper smash. The volatility you will see is the death rattle of a manipulated system, not a signal of true price discovery. Watch the spread between the mint and the exchange. That is your true indicator. When the entity that manufactures the coin values it at $173, believing the screen that says 90 is a choice with profound consequences. The evidence is laid bare. The mint has tipped its hand. The only question left is whether you will believe what they are telling you.